Hello and welcome to Nerds of the Old Republic, the podcast where we drink and discuss nerdy fiction, and where I struggle to remember the difference between Melkor, Mordor, and Morgoth, whatever the fuck those things are. Today we've got the fantasy writer to rule them all, JRR Tolkien, on tap. And you may know The Lord of the Rings, but if you don't know today's book, The Silmarillion, are you even a nerd, bro? I'm Adam.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Mike.
And we are here to discuss The Silmarillion. But first, I wanted to send a hello to a Twitter user who gave us a shout-out recently, at VoidWalker0x79, for their kind words. Thanks for the shout-out, and we're glad to have you with us, Voidwalker. If today's book isn't your thing, and you don't have time to read almost an entire world history of a fictional universe from creation to the fifth age of some millennia, well, luckily for you, Amazon has taken one of the few parts I understood from this book, from the Silmarillion, and made it into an extended series. Don't have time to watch 8 hours of elves and dwarves alternately fighting and then hugging it out? Good news. We're talking about this series for our next installment of the podcast. Though you should probably spend less time on TikTok and more time on nerdy fiction anyways. That's right. Next up in our series is Amazon Prime's The Rings of Power. So, before we get to all that, let's talk about what we're drinking today.
First, I gotta say, you just totally ruled out TikTok as our next conquest. No TikTokers gonna want to listen to us now.
I have very confused feelings about TikTok, and one is because I'm very confused, but also alternately turned on by TikTok dances. And then also, I've heard from the olds, aka the boomers, that TikTok is like a way for China to spy on us, so I'm just really freaked out by the whole thing.
Wow. Well, you did a nice job distilling all of Tolkien's world down into about 15 seconds of summary. That was good.
Yeah, you're well on your way to TikTok stardom, for sure.
Yeah,
did I say Tip Top?
Tip Top.
That's our new thing, guys. We're going to start an app called Tip Top.
Our nerd branch off. And Adam will be the dancer, as well as the brief summarizer.
I see that you have seen me dance, and it's awful.
He's got this thing called the twirl.
Wait till
you see it.
The twirl. It does not involve my ass, I'll tell you that.
That would be the twerk.
Oh, is that what that's supposed to be?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been doing it wrong.
Oh, fuck. He's doing it right now.
Oops, sorry. Can't stop. Anyways. So, the funny thing is, we've not had a single sip of this beverage in front of us, gents, today.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. So, in front of us, we have a mulled wine, and we really kind of went around, what are we going to have today? It, here in Buffalo, is wintertime. We just got off of one snowstorm. Another snowstorm is impending this weekend. And mulled wine sounded like the best choice here. So
sounds downright elven.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Indeed.
Mike and I have both made mulled wine in the past. This happens to be mine, so if it sucks, I'm sorry.
I'm going to say it sucks, no matter how good it is.
We have this competitive nature thing.
It smells like I just walked into Martha Stewart's house.
And Snoop Dogg was standing there going, "What's up?"
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't have that sticky, icky smell. But
well, that's another product.
Fantastic.
It does smell delightful.
Yeah, so if you've never made mulled wine before, you just get yourself a bottle of mediocre wine. Don't use good stuff.
Yes,
or use good stuff, aka Snoop's Cali Red. And then...
that's the Mike recipe. I use only Snoop Dogg's Cali Red.
Oh, no, it's fantastic.
We tried to have him as a guest on the show.
Yeah, friend of the cast.
Yeah, but...
scheduling conflicts.
There was. It came down to him or Bill Murray, and I accidentally scheduled them both for next month.
Right.
Oh,
and we couldn't make extra time in our schedule for Snoop, so he's just going to have to get bumped.
Well, he understands. We're busy. We are busy.
He's cool.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Compton. And
it's Long Beach, but
oh fuck! Now he's not a friend of the cast.
We just lost California.
Now he's not. Damn it! Sorry to everybody, just the world. I'm sorry. So you take yourself a fine red wine. You throw in some brandy. You throw in some cloves, whole cloves. You throw in some anise, and you throw in some cinnamon, and you cook it. Full stop. You get it hot. You can do it in a slow cooker like I did, or just on your stovetop. Once it starts simmering, stop. Drink it. It's the kind of recipe I can follow.
Sounds good.
Brilliant.
All right. So,
one thing Adam can do well is get it hot.
Well, I mean, to quote a poet of our time, it is getting hot in her. So, gentlemen. Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Let's take a sip and see what we think.
Yes, sir.
Thumbs up.
Cheers.
Oh,
That is delightful.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
is a
good.
solid Western New York winter beverage right here.
That tastes like the season right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure about the amount of anise, and if you've listened to previous casts, you'll know we do not like the taste of liquid anise.
That's
AKA
anise.
absinthe.
Anise.
Pretty much listen to, well, any of our previous casts, and there's a good chance we're drinking it and bitching.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this one time we bought a bottle of absinthe. Mike bought a bottle of absinthe, and it lasted for like 3-4 months. Yeah. It probably still is your house.
Still got half that bottle.
It's still there.
Yeah.
I tried bringing it out at a recent Christmas party I was hosting to impress people.
Yeah.
No one was interested.
The fuck? It's the classiest literary beverage.
And I tried explaining it's featured in Hemingway and William Burroughs, and that's
Lewis
about the
Carroll.
time when they their eyes glazed over. And
We still got to
I
do the
lost
sugar cube drip. I think that's the
Oh,
thing
yeah.
that was missing.
them. Agreed.
We didn't get that drip.
No, we need more drip.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad this worked out, gents.
this
I'm
worked
going to
out.
take my
Astounding.
time sipping this.
This is astounding.
As evidenced by the fact that there was that radio silence there while we all sipped some more.
Little ASMR.
Sipping on some scissor.
Oh, yeah. We're making so many beautiful literary references.
Oh, yeah.
tonight. So,
Poets.
since this is more of a sipper than some things, and we're kind of going to be imbibing this for the rest of the cast, I think, let's start by talking about our past histories with Tolkien, the Silmarillion. I'm immediately looking at Sean, who is our Tolkien resident expert, I believe.
How many hours
because,
do we have for this, guys?
I mean, we could
Days.
just make this the rest of the year. That's fine.
Well, we try to keep them roughly approximate to my commute, so 3.5 to 4 hours.
Okay.
That's with snow or without snow on the ground?
Oh, that's without snow. That's
Yeah.
good point. You got a little extra room there, Sean.
Okay.
There you go, you
Mike
got
lives
7.
in Cincinnati for anybody who
Commutes into Buffalo.
Teaching jobs, man. They're hard to come by.
It's just what people have to do these days.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Mike, do you want to start off then, like, your history with Tolkien, maybe the Silmarillion, if you had any specifically?
Absolutely. So I wasn't always a nerd. I was cool at one point, and
Don't sell yourself short.
that changed when I was in college. The Lord of the Rings movies came out. I had not heard of them, had no familiarity with it whatsoever, or with really any fantasy or science fiction beyond Star Wars, which I knew very well since the time I was 3. But I saw the movie sort of unintentionally. A roommate of mine had a DVD, and I watched The Fellowship. And I remember being so engrossed and so amazed that I was startled when it ended. And I immediately went back and rewatched it shortly after. I saw the next 2 as they came out in the theater. I bought the DVDs and watched them many, many times. And within a few years, I had also read the book, Lord of the Rings. When they came out on Blu-ray and extended edition, I bought those and watched those many times, including all the supplementary footage, the behind the scenes, the making of, and the Silmarillion and the Hobbit. And I became a very enthusiastic Tolkien nerd and have been ever since.
You know, it's funny that you said, like, you came to it in college. I came to Tolkien in high school. We had to read The Hobbit, and no offense to whatever English teacher I had, whatever else was going on. Yeah.
The Hobbit in high school?
The Hobbit in high school.
Wow.
It may have also been freshman year. Like, I remember being early.
Okay.
And I was not always the best reader, which is weird, I know. But I remember really not enjoying it but I can't give you, like, a specific reason. And that kind of turned me off.
Well, it's a kid's book. Like, you're probably beyond it at that point in your life.
That's kind of you to say. I'm not sure. maybe not. No, not mentally or emotionally. But then when I was flying to London with my family for a vacation, I bought the first book in the Lord of the Rings series, and I tried to get into it. I mean, I had an 8-hour flight. I'm like, sure, I can get into this. I don't know if it was just the timing, if I was too distracted or whatever, but I just couldn't find myself getting into it. But then the movies came out, and I fucking love the movies. Like, I hate to say that for me, the movies were better than the book, but maybe it's because someone had a vision for the story that I didn't have myself. And then that like, I love the lore. Like, I play Dungeons and Dragons, which is set in high fantasy, and, you know, like, all those things. But I just, on my own, could not get into it without some serious, like, third-person intervention.
I was about to slap you for saying the movies are better, but
you understand why, though.
This is the one property where I tend to give it a pass because the Peter Jackson trilogy is unparalleled. It is, and this is as a staunch Tolkienite, and I know the estate is not happy with them. Whatever, they need to get their weed pipes out of their asses and look at the fact that the man was able to take that epic and turn it into something digestible for a massive audience, and people love it to this day. I mean,
damn near inconceivable, really.
Right. He did the impossible. And I guess you said you liked it in college, Mike. Mm-hmm. Adam, you were about it in high school. You kind of got into it. I started reading the Lord of the Rings trilogy in 4th grade. So I'm like you and what is it that you started reading as a young
H.P. Lovecraft.
Yes, I'm like you and Lovecraft, but with Tolkien. My brother, someone had given my brother, foolishly, had given him the set of books, because my brother is not a reader. I don't know if they were trying to spark something, and they promptly were thrown into his closet somewhere. And me being the bored, miscreant that I was as a child, was rifling through his closet one day, and I came across the books, and I saw them gathering dust, and I thought, he's not reading these, and it's got a cool cover, of course. Yeah. I started reading it, and I was hooked. And I remember for probably about 3 or 4 years in a row, I read the entire trilogy over the summer, every summer.
Wow.
Back to back to back to back. I could not get out of that world. I loved it. And I got the Silmarillion. I would sit in my basement rocking the first 3 albums of Metallica, reading the Silmarillion. So, like, that's the soundtrack to the Silmarillion for me, is like epic tunes like Orion and stuff off of Ride the Lightning. And it's just, I don't know. It's become a fiber of my being. And when the movies came out, I was amazed at how good they turned out to be. I was waiting for death. I knew that there's no way. This was, I think, after the Phantom Menace, pretty much killed that other early nerddom for me, or almost killed it. And then this came out, and I was like, it's true. You can make a great 3-hour movie based on a fantasy property, and it be riveting for the entire 3 hours. And I've never looked back. I love it. It's amazing.
Well, I enjoy how my favorite part of your story is that you went looking for Playboy and found Tolkien.
I was thinking it, but I wasn't going to say it. Yeah.
No, my brother had cooler toys than me.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, he also had no porn. So
no porn.
Yeah. I believe me. I've looked.
He's not into Lord of the Rings. He had no porn.
Well, not that I could find. He might have been really good at hiding.
Maybe he's really into it and had an extra good hiding spot.
By the point where I think we were both interested at the same time, he was already out of the house because he's quite a bit older than me. So,
well, I think that I had heard for years after seeing the movie, because there was a period of a few years where I was watching the movies regularly and not reading the book. So to your point about how they were able to turn it into this 3-hour, essentially a masterpiece, but people talked about how it had been considered for decades to be unfilmable.
Yeah.
And when I did finally start reading the book, I finally understood that, because you see all these scenes, and it's like when you try to actually conceptualize how you would do that on screen in a way that wouldn't just totally drive audiences away.
Right.
It's hard to imagine. It was brilliant. It is one of the rare achievements where I don't think that you can definitively say the book is better or the movie is better. The book is a masterpiece of literature, and I think that the movie is a masterpiece of filmmaking.
I'll concede that point, but I will still say I enjoy reading the books more than going back to the movies. That's just me, though, because I lived it for so long in my mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's got that nostalgia factor for you, and I think the only thing we could make this episode better for you is if we played a little Metallica in the background.
I can make that happen in post.
I mean, yeah, do you, but, people are going to listen to us in the morning, so.
I love how we're...
I'll just do that quietly in the background while you talk. Please continue.
In his ear. Please don't do it in your microphone. Hover over his ear.
I love how no one ever mentions the cartoons from the 70s that they made.
Oh, I did some research in trying to make sure I understood what the fuck I read.
Oh, those things were a mess. It was like cartoon, there was rotoscoping, there was all this stuff going on, and it just looked bizarre and like
Nearly offensive Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, wow, I'm really glad that never gained any traction, and that Peter Jackson's movies completely erased most of the memory of that.
Now, having not seen it, I ask. Let me ask you this question: if one were high, would they be much improved?
They must have been high while making them,
Gotcha.
so it's potentially there.
It's
Okay,
the only way to comprehend
but
it.
I would recommend shrooms as your high of choice.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You need some sort of hallucinogen to really appreciate it.
Understood.
Quick PSA, Nerds of the Old Republic does not condone using hallucinatory materials if they are not approved in your state or locality.
Wrong. We approve all hallucinogens all the time.
I prescribe to the Hunter S. Thompson school of thought, which is that he does not condone alcohol or drug use for anyone, but they've always worked for him.
Oh, that was good. Yep.
Speaking of alcohol use, this mulled wine is going down very quickly.
Very smoothly.
Yeah, I am worried about my consumption currently.
I'm wondering
just gonna chug it.
does my voice sound even richer and silkier?
It smells like velvet.
Are we that close? Oh, God.
Did I have a moment of synesthesia there? Or what happened?
Sean has this idea that he has this deep, sonorous voice. It must sound like that in his head. I've tried to explain to him before how nasally and
He comes out like a squeaky mouse to me most of the time. What you hear in your headphones or your car is literally post-editing because Sean does the post. So
Damn it!
I don't know if he realizes how shrill he sounds sometimes.
yeah.
Guys!
Oh, now you're just impersonating me. Not cool.
No, Adam, you have a good alto.
Thanks. I never took chorus, so I don't know where that
No, I don't
falls.
think you wouldn't even be an alto. What would he be?
Soprano?
No.
Right?
No, I think you'd be a tenor.
I don't. I'll,
You're in the
whatever
tenor
you call
range,
me.
yeah.
Sure.
Like, you're probably a bass.
Well, thank you.
When I sing
thank you.
karaoke, it's falsetto. So
Okay.
if that changes
It's
everything.
in falsetto.
Yeah, just that's my key, falsetto. So
Later on, Adam will be
Clove.
performing the... Oh, you found the clove.
This was the game we played.
I found the Christmas clove.
We knew one had gotten into the glasses. Sean is the winner.
I'm glad I didn't have to crack them because we all would have lost. I'm sorry that you lost because it's just whole clove.
Yes.
I was about to say that later on, Adam will be performing the pan flute version of the Shire theme song. With his lovely... what did we decide he was? A tenor or a...
I think he's a tenor, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But I'm also going to compete with the penny whistle solo from My Heart Will Go On and Titanic.
That's glorious.
Yeah.
On the 25th anniversary of Titanic.
Is
Good
it
call.
really?
Yes, it is.
Shit, man.
I mean, not exactly this day, but this year is 25 years.
Fuck yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. So let's get to the nerdy fiction we're thinking of today, the Silmarillion. My first question is, I'm sure many people are aware of the franchise and the property. So for those people who've maybe only read The Hobbit or seen the movies or read Lord of the Rings or seen those movies, who's this book for?
Me. This book is
Literally
for
wrote it for
me and Stephen Colbert. That's it. I think Tolkien was sitting in his basement, writing this, where the hell he wrote his screed. And he's like, you know
In the
what?
Shire.
Someday a few nerds from the colonies are going to really enjoy the amount of detail I've done on this. And God, do I enjoy it.
Yeah, I gather as much. I will say that when I was reading this, I didn't feel like it was for me. And not because I didn't appreciate the work. I literally did not think I could comprehend all the names, places, things.
To be honest, though, the non-facetious answer is it's for him. Mm-hmm. He wrote it for himself.
That is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If that's who the book is for. It is for JRR Tolkien.
He never, I don't believe, ever really intended to publish all of it. There might have been stories like the Baron and Luthien, Children of Hurin, that kind of stuff that might have been intended for small publication. But Christopher Tolkien is the one who really engineered, and it's his son, engineered the collection that we call the Silmarillion and putting that all together because the rabid fan base wanted more. And there's a chance to cash in on all of his dad's copious piles of notes and stories, and they're still releasing books based on things that they're finding in the records there.
Something was just released recently.
I read it actually.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like on Middle Earth, and it's just his annotations basically about his thoughts on elvish lives and how they reproduce and how quickly and
how they reproduce.
Not how, but how prolific they are in child and when they do it because they live forever, so they can't have kids throughout eternity.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating for a person like me, but again, that's like in the Silmarillion. It's his like outline. It's his sketch for the world of Lord of the Rings, like because that's the true narrative that obviously he knew would be palatable to a full audience. But the guy was a linguist. Like he developed this whole, I guess, mythos around a language that he made based on Finnish. I think was the original.
It was a big part of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
So it's it has this bizarre origin when you really think about it. But I think the guy just teased the thread out and just kept going with it, and eventually all of this mad world building became Lord of the Rings. But that's just the way I envision it. I don't know if that's the truth.
It is a very different style of storytelling, and I have personally read a number of the old Icelandic sagas, and I get a very strong sense that those were part of the inspiration for the Silmarillion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right down to stylistic things. I mean, the Icelandic sagas are never a single story. They're generational stories that, talk about, they trace families and feuds, and they go to different geographical locations and follow all these things over the course of many generations. And the whole thing is told in this very deliberate style where it's a narrative style that's very different from what we're used to in modern Western storytelling. Sean, when we were talking off the podcast earlier, you had mentioned how there's those little insertions like, so-and-so, we don't hear from them anymore, or something like that. And that is something you see all the time in the Icelandic sagas. Like, they'll be describing something, and then it'll be like, and then so-and-so moved over the hills to some region of Iceland, and they do not enter into the tale any further. Right. And it's very deliberate. It's almost like this sense of like I think they were called skalds, like they were the storytellers in the community,
right? And
they're delivering these generational stories that have been part of the record keeping, and they're drawing attention to the fact that is what they're doing. They're telling you a historical story, and there's a lot of that tone, especially once you move away from the old, like, God's shit in the beginning, the rest of the book really gets into that, like, saga feel.
Yeah. It's very, like, biblical epic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It's a creation myth. The first book is really just the creation myth of the entire universe, the world, the different parts of the earth, and then the creatures in it. And here's where I give the disclaimer, I'm going to pronounce everything wrong. It's just everything wrong.
I think we all are. I mean, I tried really hard to read through the appendices once to get all the pronunciations and learn how to do it. But it follows its own phonology and everything. Like, I don't know if it's like, is it like Turgon is supposed to be Turjan or something like that? And like Fëanor instead of, I would pronounce like Fëanor or something like that. But the classic one, Sauron. For years I'd pronounced it Sauron, thinking like, it's like sauropod. Sauron. That sounds evil. But no, it's Sauron is how you're supposed to pronounce it. So there's all these like little things with that. Yeah. I was going to say something about
creation
something.
Myth,
oh, yeah.
Book.
So thank you. I always got the feeling that like all the Silmarillion, all the Elvish stuff and the God stuff is Old Testament. And all of the Numenor and Third Age stuff is all New Testament. And just like that feeling of like the firstborn versus the secondborn, like the first covenant versus the second covenant. And like, because he was C.S. Lewis, and really they were great friends.
Yep.
And that whole Christian sort of mythology that sort of informed both of their works. And I think with Lewis, it was a lot more overt. But with Tolkien, it's definitely there. Like the good and evil, like the pure heart kind of stuff and all of that, and how that can all conquer everything.
Ironically, Lewis began as, I believe, the atheist, and then later became the much stronger, Christian devotee, while Tolkien was almost, from what I've heard, a little annoyed with how Christian he became and how much allegory there was in the Narnia Chronicles.
That's funny.
Oh, yeah. I can totally buy that because, I mean, when you're reading the Narnia Chronicles and what's his name? The lion dies.
Aslan, a.k.a. Jesus.
Because you can literally count, like, how many pages and how long he's dead for, and you're like, that's probably about 3 days. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. I like Tolkien, his ability to be inspired by those things, but tell his own story. And I mean, there's parts where you're like, okay, that is so derivative. Yeah, they told a song instead of like this, but whatever, for the angels and the creation of the world and that, but it's still really unique and interesting. And you can see the derivations there, but it's also, I don't know. You feel like as you're reading it, like, man, I really wish this was like my religion. You know, like you read about it, like that's so cool, and it's got all these like intricate little like neat things to it that it doesn't have like the like the 1,000 authors trying to tell the same story feel that the Bible does.
Yeah.
Whereas like obviously there was one single mind, and it feels much more cohesive that way. Maybe that's the best way to explain it.
And that's a credit. That's a testament to the skill and the vision of its creator, JRR Tolkien, because I'm sure I'm paraphrasing, but he described what he was trying to do with Middle Earth as create a mythology for England, basically.
Yeah.
He would look at like, ancient Greece and ancient, China, Africa. There were all these very rich mythologies that all these cultures had. And he felt that England lacked that. And he was approaching what he was doing as creating a mythology, an ancient, lost, forgotten time in England's history.
So wait a minute. If Middle Earth then is like Great Britain, then is Ireland the blessed land? Is that Oman?
It's across the waters.
I mean, being part Irish,
yeah,
maybe I'm deathless.
I think
You're
that's
certainly tall and pale enough.
Sorry,
man.
It's true.
It's okay.
Okay. I am very pale.
I'm translucent, so I feel like I can make that joke.
So we've established that Sean is very pale and has an extremely shrill voice. This cast is going well for Sean.
This is really just me trying to avoid my insecurities here with my lack of knowledge of all of Lord of the Rings. I dove into this book and I find your Old Testament, New Testament analogy helpful because that kind of gets me from the first couple books to where would you say the New Testament starts then? You said the coming of elves, maybe?
No, I think even beyond that. I would say, oh, Jesus. no
hey,
pun,
that was apropos.
No
man.
pun intended.
Yeah, we're just
on
giving
that
the points away.
I was about to give another bell for that.
I gotta say, like, when the world was broken and Beleriand was buried under the sea, I think, like, that's the end of the Old Testament. If you think about it, like, the elves are like the Jews, the original chosen ones, right? And the coming of man is like, this, like, humble race of nobodies who, through their good heart and works, can turn to good and they can become better. That all sounds very, Jesus is preaching that you don't have to be born into it. Like, anyone can do it, right? Like, the elves they're too perfect. They're Mary Sue's. Like, everything about the elves smacks of, like, this idea of trying to take what the divine is and make it flesh, which essentially he had already done with the mulled wine is killing me. What are the Valar?
Valar, sorry.
Like what
again, B's, V's, there's like 7 of each.
I get it. But like what they were already made manifest in Aman. Like they became alive, like a part of the earth, and they chose to do that because Iluvatar gave them the right to oversee the creation that they helped make. So it felt like, why do we have like a do-over on the godly ones, right? Because the elves, it's like the children of Iluvatar, the first ones, the Eldar, they're all powerful. Like they are just almost like this close to being like a Maiar, right? Like they're like just below divine. And I'm like, all right. So, and you think about it, it's like, why? Why do they need to have the power over nature that they do? Why do they have to have this, all this, that, and the other thing? And I guess if you think about it, the idea is that they're like the ones who almost like make the earth ready for the coming of the second covenant or the second coming, the children, right? The second born, what are they called? The Edain or whatever. And it's the, like mankind that is eventually supposed to be like the true vision of Iluvatar for like, they go, we don't know where they go when they die, right? The elves they're tied to the earth and they wait in the halls of Mandos if they lose their mortal flesh and all of this. They're not their mortal flesh, but their flesh. Yeah. And their their fire has to wait until the earth is unmade. But mankind gets like this like special unknown thing, which is very religious when you think about it. It's like the idea of dealing with death. Like what happens when we die? Oh, we don't really know. But it's going to be something good. Just wait and see. Right?
You'll find out.
Right.
Well,
and it comes up with like the children of like Elrond and Elros. Like one picks the life of man and one picks the life of the elf. And it's that idea that who made the better choice, right? Because Elrond had to live in sorrow, watching the world diminish and himself and everything with it. But Elros got to grow old, like what is he, like 600 years old or something like that, and then die. And then he gets like a second adventure. It's like a 1-up or something like that in a
Yes.
video game where he gets to go and do another quest, whereas Elrond is stuck in the old game, like walking into the walls going, I don't know where to go now, you know?
That is a good compromise. More than 80 or 85 years, but not quite the curse that immortality would be.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
To your point about the elves being nearly, perfect, angelic sort of demigod creatures. That's what makes, for me, the highlight of this book is any time that the Sons of Fëanor show up, or Fëanor himself. They are fascinating because they are so human. Like they are the most human of the elves.
Are they the Cain to the Abel of the rest of them?
What's that?
They're like the Cain to the Abel.
Cain to the Abel.
They're super passionate.
Sounds like we're dropping hip hop lyrics here. Cain to the Abel.
Check that.
What was I was making a really smart point here.
I'm sorry,
I feel
Mike.
like
I
the Sons of
apologize.
Fëanor. and
that's
Fëanor
right. Yeah.
himself.
So I feel that every time they come into the book, they just totally fuck shit up. Like everything's always going good, and they fuck shit up.
Yep.
Even when their moment in the book has mostly passed, and there's like a few lingering sons left, scattered about Middle Earth, and we've mostly moved on to other categories or other characters. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, it'll be like, then so-and-so and so-and-so, Sons of Fëanor showed up. And all of a sudden, it's like, there's betrayals and battles and death and all kinds of treachery. So they always just fuck shit up.
Yeah.
But that's what makes them so interesting. They're so human, and they are motivated by such human things that you sympathize with them. The fact that everything they do is motivated by this oath that they swore long ago.
Well, isn't that the original sin? Was Fëanor's oath against the Valar, and to get the Silmarils back. That was the original sin that caused the downfall of the Noldor,
right?
And basically the ruin of Aman.
But what I love is that they're not trying to atone for that original sin. They never do.
No, they
They all go to their doom, like swinging the sword and like doubling and tripling down. Those characters in particular, I mentioned the Icelandic sagas before, they remind me of those kind of characters, the Vikings, like the warriors, and they had a code and they were going to fucking live by it and they were going to fucking die by it.
There were a few of them that repented and regretted the choice, but they never absolved themselves of the oath. They never said like, okay, it's over now, until the Silmarils were burning in their hands and they had to do something with them, right? Like that.
Right. Yeah. And then that's where like the tragedy comes in, right? Doesn't one of them end up like, there's rumors of him wandering some shore like mad, and then the other one jumps into the sea, if I remember correctly.
Well, the one cast the jewel into the sea and it was lost forever. And the other one dropped it into an abyss, basically into the center of the earth there, and it goes forever. And then the other one, Arendelle, flies in the sky with. So, like you would.
As one does.
Yeah.
Like Green Lantern or Superman.
Yeah.
Like I said, very human.
That's the one thing I think is interesting. And you brought up the Icelandic sagas because the Viking sagas, the idea of the trees of light, and that being like the origin of all the light and the goodness in the world, and how it's sort of like that's what Melkor hated, or Morgoth eventually, and all that stuff. And it was interesting because that's like the tree in Viking sagas, the tree of life, or Idril, or whatever it's called.
Yggdrasil.
Thank you.
I have no idea if I pronounced it that right, but I tried to roll the R, so I think that Yggdrasil.
Well, that makes it sound so exotic.
That
Excellent.
is so good. And every American has a inferiority complex when it comes to accents, so it doesn't matter. You just crushed it.
Beautiful.
What you have to do is own it confidently. Yeah.
But it's the same basic thing, right? Like he's riffing on that kind of thing. And those trees actually play such a huge part of the entire saga of the elves in the Silmarils, because it keeps coming up again and again.
Yep.
And the descendants in Numenor are like made in the image of the Telperion, or whatever one of the original tree was, is the one at the very end of Return of the King in the court of Gondor there, or in Minas Tirith, right? That's the white tree that flowers again when Aragorn takes the crown.
You're looking at me like I'm speaking this language.
God damn it, Stephen Colbert, you missed out, man. You missed
really
out.
did.
This was your one chance for fame. You could have been on this cast using your nerddom for the good of the world, and you blew it, buddy. You blew it.
The opportunity does not come twice.
No.
I jest, of course. Stephen Colbert, please come on our cast.
You could come on anytime. Literally, just call me.
I don't jest. I'm taking an oath right now. The oath of Sean. This is the oath of Sean. Yeah. You will not be on this cast ever, Stephen of Colbert.
You have to go back and find his full title. in a
Oh,
YouTube
yeah.
in a YouTube clip I saw.
No, he's beneath that title now.
Whoa. Did you take his crest? he gave himself, like, he got some intern to, like, bring him a club soda or something. And they're like, here you go, Mr. Colbert. He's like, you will address me by my proper title. And it's like 30 seconds long.
That's
like,
awesome.
You know, man of men of Gondar Feanor, and he just keeps, like, trilling out these things.
I do also jest. I jape. I would very much enjoy talking with him about Tolkien and being crushed by his encyclopedic knowledge.
Oh yeah, the immeasurable weight of that man's genius, both comedic and Tolkienian.
Yep.
So, you know, we've done a lot of, like, the stories and how they interconnect, where they're drawn from, and the inspiration, who's it for. So let's just keep it light for a second here. What were your favorite stories? I mean, I know, Mike, you talked about Feanor, and anytime those kids show up.
those crazy kids.
Those crazy kids.
Bratty little fucks.
You know? Well, yeah, that's why I like
that comes
them.
from parenting. Feanor had to rein them in. And...
He just didn't.
No, but he was like, the apple didn't fall far from that tree because he was the original hothead. Yep. And his dad got killed and he just fucking dropped the gloves and that was it, man. Melkor was doomed. He became Morgoth because Feanor called him that.
Yeah. Hashtag daddy issues,
yeah,
for sure.
Really.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
How about you, Sean?
Oh,
Some
man.
of your favorite stories?
I like Baron and Luthien, of course. I think this is probably the most cohesive narrative in the entire thing as far as like a simple like story. The Children of Hurin is pretty cool because it's got incest. Do you guys catch that?
No.
Yeah. Well, you know, Baron basically bangs his sister.
Oh, yeah.
Not Baron.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Baron.
They don't realize it, right? There's
no.
remind me.
You mean
what was
like
his
Game
name?
of Thrones?
Not,
he actually
not
slept with
Baron.
his aunt.
Because it gets revealed to them.
Right.
At one
She
point.
fell into a forgetfulness or something,
Yes.
and he found her, and he married her, and then they had kids, and it was a mega tragedy. It's very Oedipal.
Right.
In its tragic tone. And it's, again, that's like the classic Greek kind of thing that he's working in there.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting story just because of that and the fact that they completely hate on the dwarves big time in that one. Like, basically treating them like second-class citizens. You know, like, all right, we'll get into the casual racism maybe another time.
Yeah, I was just
Tolkien,
about to say,
but,
you mean a white English writer is casually a racist?
Yeah, you know, those small, swarthy people that are beneath him, I guess, would be
Literally.
kind of... But the dwarves have redeeming qualities, not like those men of the Southlands who, you know, what he means by that.
Yeah.
But, you know, those were good. I like the Kelebeth because I think the Númenóreans are a really fascinating people and that they are they're close to elfdom. They make war on the gods and, you know, of course, that like Atlantis. Ding, 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 another one.
Sinks, yeah.
It brings another one of those stories in, but that idea is huge. And, you know, I don't know. I think as a kid, I really liked the original stories about the way that the earth was made. The song I thought was a kind of a neat idea of creationism. I liked how a rogue Valar made the dwarves just because he just wanted to, and he was forgiven. But like Melkor wants to do stuff too, and Luke was like, no. Right? It's like that's the one that like he doesn't get to do what he wants to do, but the other ones all get what they want.
And that's why he's a bad dude.
I noticed that's really the theme of the Silmarillion, I feel, is like all the family bullshit.
Oh, yeah, and I love how they basically let him fuck shit up left and right because they've got their own little place, and they're like, nah, it's cool. We got the Blessed Realm. We're good, right? We got the trees and everything. He gets this giant-ass spider from nowhere, sucks up all the light, fucking destroys it all, and they're all like, they just hide in their house like, well, I don't know what to do. And he goes and makes like a heavy metal kingdom in Middle-earth and fucking rules over that shit. And then finally, someone has the balls to go and knock on Dad's door and be like, Dad, can you tell him to stop messing with us? And they're like, fine! And they get over there and basically cast him through the doors of night. Right. And he's gone.
Yeah.
Speaking of the spider and the heavy metal kingdom,
I'm
great
Goliath.
analogy, by the way.
Thank you.
I was about to say the spider's name is the most heavy metal aspect of all of this.
Ungoliant. That's the name of our first album.
That is such a badass name.
Republic.
I think I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I was like smiling like an idiot at my book every time I read that character's name. That is such a good name.
I love how Morgoth himself feared her. Like she could have devoured him.
Right.
And this is like an unknown power. Like there's no origin to it. It's this darkness, all-consuming thing that gives birth to Shelob, by the way, for those of you who have only seen the movies. That's the spider that Frodo and Sam fight in the Mountains of Terror.
And for the 9,000th time, Sam proves himself to be the real hero of this story.
Right, which is why he is also allowed to go to the Blessed Realm.
Ah, yes.
Because
He was a ring bearer. And
Does he, though? Is that how that movie ends?
I know,
But
but
he stayed back to tend his garden.
he did. He stayed with Rosie Cotton and had a family, but I think eventually the idea is that he got to go also. Like, Frodo went with
Good for
Gandalf.
Sam.
When Gandalf was called back, because his days were done and he could set down the secret flame of Nenya and all that, he was able to go back. He took Bilbo, he took Frodo, and I think Sam followed afterwards in the last ship.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen Colbert.
That's right.
But I'm fairly certain because Sam touched that element of basically Sauron, who was a Maiar. He touched the divine. Mm-hmm. He was given passage to go to the Blessed Realm, after his wife and kids all died.
Yeah, you get the tragedy of seeing your family pass before your eyes,
right.
But then you can go to the Blessed
You
Realm.
get to live in heaven on earth, basically, and eat the Garden of Eden, which is essentially what that is.
Well, he was told not to leave Frodo, so...
I have nothing to add to that, because that was the perfect comment.
Yeah, that literally was.
Potatoes! That's what I'll add.
That has been the absolute work GIF of the week since we were talking about this. And honestly, someone would just throw it on the work chat in the middle of something and be like, what the fuck are we talking about potatoes again?
There was
Samwise.
a Christmas sweater out this year of Samwise Gamgee smiling, and underneath it said potatoes, and I was this close to buying it on Amazon, but it was, I think, $60. And that's a little more than I like to pay for food-related sweaters.
We need
That's above my ugly Christmas sweater budget.
We need nerds Christmas sweaters. Think about that. We could put our little avatar on a Christmas
I was
sweater.
going to say, my face with some Elvish above it?
No.
Oh.
I was thinking more
Cthulhu's
like... Cthulhu's head
nightmare
with,
face.
with his martini glass and his book on a ugly sweater might be pretty cool.
The many-tentacled face of Cthulhu.
That would be pretty cool.
On a Christmas sweater. I'm sure that exists already, but not our spin with the glasses and the martini.
Not our
glass.
colors either.
I would also really enjoy some holiday swag or even just some Tolkien swag that is Silmarillion based. Like, I want something that's got like the Silmarils on it and it says like drip or something under it, right? like no one would get it.
Drip.
One in 1,000 people would understand that reference, but that's what I'm here for. That's what I want.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Sean. Listeners at home, you can... no, I jest, of course.
Yeah.
We're not in this for the money, just for the fame and the women.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you want me to take
Well, your wife is kind of stuck, man.
yeah.
That's true. She's already very impressed with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dear listeners, don't think we're joking. We have thousands of downloads as of this podcast.
That's right. Multiple thousands.
Multiple thousands beyond that, with listeners in not every area code, but almost every continent.
Yeah.
And
come on, Antarctica. What the fuck?
Seriously.
well, nobody lives down there.
Yeah, but they got scientists who should be listening to us.
That's right. This is
That's
their
true.
jam. This is
What-
their shit. We started
what
this
else are they gonna
podcast
do?
with that audience in mind, the Antarctica scientist community.
Exactly.
Indeed, we need to shape up our SEO or something so we're targeted at them
See,
better.
they're a cabal, and their cost of entry is way too high.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. But no, I bring that up because we're, believe it or not, right to the end of Mike's drive time. So we should probably kind
It's been
of.
4.5 hours already.
Yeah.
Nice cast.
It's amazing how I edit most of that out, right?
And it's amazing how long I nursed that one glass of mulled wine there.
Mine's been
4.5
gone
hours.
I know,
20
mine has been
minutes.
gone for a long time.
Yeah. So, we had joked about making this a multiple cast episode, and we're at that junction. Like, either we go all in, or we say, you know what, let's put an edit mark here, and then we'll switch to our second cast. So where are you guys at?
I'm going to go with this. I think we could easily go more in depth with each individual part of the Silmarillion, but I think we've kind of plumbed it enough for now.
Yeah.
I know that there are more seasons of Rings of Power on the way where this conversation might naturally return to quite often, so I figure
Revisit it then?
put a pin in it for now and see how it goes.
Agreed.
That's good. That gives me at least a year to try to understand this, actually.
It'll take many years, Adam. It's not
I'm not
easy.
an elf. I'm not going to live forever.
You need to go to basically Tolkien theology school where they teach you all of the massive lore.
Do I get a Gandalf pipe like you have?
No.
Fuck.
Sorry. That's only for grandmasters.
Oh.
You can go to the Renaissance Festival and buy your own.
Maybe I'll just do that.
They'll start you off with a pair of elf ears, though.
Ooh.
And you get hobbit feet slippers.
I already have hobbit feet, so they fit over my hobbit feet.
Yes.
They're very hairy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe a little itchy.
Well, that's okay. They make a cool noise when I walk. So, I guess I know where we're at with our recommendations, because we're at that time of the cast.
Yeah, I recommend mulled wine.
Yes. Well, yeah, mulled wine for sure.
And the Silmarillion,
All right.
of course.
Mike?
Yeah, I do recommend it. It's obviously for the hardcore crowd. Read Lord of the Rings first. Watch the movies first.
Sure.
And if you are itching for more Middle Earth and you don't want as much a story as information, then you will love the Silmarillion as much as we do.
If you love the Bible, you'll love the Silmarillion.
Or the Icelandic sagas if you're cool.
Yes.
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 Yes. That's where we're at. And I think on that note, we should just have our outro from a little Metallica without getting into copyright infringement issues. Sorry, Lars. And we'll say, see you next time, nerds.
Cheers.
Cheers.